Joining us now, Rob Staten from Seahawks Draft Blog. And Rob, I got to say, going into this game, I expected it to be very low scoring. I was pleasantly surprised to see the Seahawks offense drop so many points on the Texans defense. I also feel like this game should have ended much sooner. So many turnovers. Let's start with just a big picture takeaway. You left the game thinking what about the Seahawks?
Well, I think the point that you just made is the pertinent one. The game finished at 7:00 in the morning for me, and it should have finished half an hour earlier.
Right?
I don't know why the Seahawks decided they needed to drag that out for another half an hour, but I think my takeaway from it is the Seahawks have got to play cleaner football than this. There's clearly a lot of talent on this team. There's a lot of positives from this performance. Leonard Williams is unbelievable. The defense has moved on very quickly from that Tampa Bay game and has put back-to-back games together now that they look really good. Jackson Smith-Njigba is playing like one of the best players in the NFL. Forget receiver position. I'm talking about any position. He is unbelievable. You've got a lot of positives there, but for whatever reason, you look at the games that they've had so far, and the common trend has been they don't finish games off as quick as they should do. There's been some situations where they've kind of got in their own way. And if this team is going to achieve what it is capable of this year, it's going to have to fix that pretty soon.
Well, let's talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba. Now, for the first time in a Seahawks game this year, Jackson Smith-Njigba did not receive the longest pass play from Sam Darnold. This time it was Cooper Kupp. Last week, technically, he did tie with A.J. Barner. However, it was yet another exceptional game. Why did you choose the distinction of saying Jackson Smith-Njigba, one of the best players in the league? I mean, can you further explain just like what you're seeing overall from him this year to make you say this guy is playing special football?
When you think about a top number one wide receiver, you are talking about a player who doesn't matter who you're playing, doesn't matter who the cornerbacks are on the other team, this player is going to have an impact. Now, Derek Stingley is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. He obviously did make a big play in that game. He wasn't covering Jackson Smith-Njigba when he made that play. But when you have teams like that who have good defenses, who have good defensive backs, and Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to get his 100+ yards anyway, he's going to get his touchdown anyway, that is a player that you just have to accept as a team that he is going to get what's coming to him. And I think that's where he's elevated himself to a level now where when you watch the Vikings, you kind of expect, even when Carson Wentz is in there, if Max Broma's going to have to play for the Vikings this week, that Justin Jefferson's going to get X number of yards and could get a touchdown in the game. It doesn't matter because he's so good, he's going to have an impact on games. I kind of feel like we're there with Jackson Smith-Njigba now. He has truly arrived this season, has announced himself as one of the very best receivers in the NFL. And, if you were going to do, I hate those kind of like top 100 lists that they do at the end of the season. Like Jackson Smith-Njigba, the way that he's played so far, could make a really strong case to be in the top 25.
I want to talk about the run game a little bit. It's so funny. Obviously, you've been doing this with us all year, and you and I left game one, and I've said it a couple times already, but you and I left game one going, oh God, what if there's some real depth concerns with this wide receiver room? And instead, what we saw in this one was, Cooper Kupp got involved a little bit more. No more throwing for Cooper Kupp, but overall, Cooper Kupp involved a bit more, and that was great to see. Torrey Horton really coming along. I'm so glad that he wasn't hurt, kind of came up limping on a deep passing attempt there into the end zone, but JSN just obviously spectacular. We are leaving week 7, heading into a break for Seattle, and then heading into the latter half of the season, and I still am waiting to see the run game get going consistently. 118 on the ground sounds great in theory, especially against a pretty suffocating defense, but it's 3.6 yards per carry. They really try to get after it. I can applaud their commitment, but what's not working for them? Because it sure feels like this would be a way to just round out what would otherwise be a really stellar offense. You want to be able to, run out the clock and be a little more effective there. What are you seeing?
Well, they clearly don't trust this running game as much as they need to, because there's no way they should be throwing the football, nearly giving away another safety in the fourth quarter, just trying to win the game with the arm of Sam Darnold when you have a great lead, a 2-score lead. That's when it's calling for you to run the ball and to kill time. And it felt like Houston had 3 drives between like 10 minutes to go and 5 minutes to go. Like they had ample opportunity to get back into that game and maybe do what the Broncos did against the Giants the other day and pull off some unexpected comeback because the Seahawks couldn't run the ball, because they couldn't kill that clock. Now, I think part of the problem is they're getting in their own way again. Just before the Sam Darnold interception, you have a really good run with Ken Walker. He gets called back on hold. The next play is the interception. little things like that where you have prevented yourself from getting momentum into your running game. You've took a bunch of yardage off the stat sheet, and then you've got to go into 1st and 18 and throw it, and you're throwing an interception. So you're not helping yourself in that regard. I have to say as well that I really like Ken Walker and I really like Zach Charbonnet. Really rated both those players coming into the league, and they look like really good players. I'm not sure that I like Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I think the fact that they've spent 2 second-round picks on them both means that they feel like they've got to find a way to get them both on the field. I'd love to see one of these running backs just get an opportunity to sort of build some momentum, to have 20 carries. I think Zach Charbonnet is better when he's a lead runner, not somebody who's coming in and spelling Ken Walker. And I think Ken Walker, it's kind of a similar thing. And they're trying to split the carries. I don't think either of them are really getting momentum. You saw flashes where Zach Charbonnet was really good in this game, and then you saw flashes with Ken Walker, but there's not really any consistency there. Plus, the blocking's got to get a little bit better. That's still a work in progress. But we will know whether this team can do some serious damage in the playoffs when we are seeing a running game that is consistently threatening, is akin to what we saw in that Kansas City preseason game. I'm afraid after 7 games, we're still waiting to see that.
Let's stay in this vein just a little bit longer. You're right. Zach Charbonnet, 51% of offensive snaps. Ken Walker with 44%. And that's been kind of the split all year long. Zach Charbonnet slightly favoring Walker, though Walker obviously with some nice explosive plays. I remember, this is just a general principle about running backs in general that talk about sometimes needing to get going. But I remember listening to an interview that one of our other shows had with Rashad Penny, saying that in that kind of like explosive end to the season he had a couple years ago, part of it was just feeling like you finally want to break through, and sometimes it takes a while and you almost like need to build up to it, and then you kind of get in a rhythm. Do you think that for someone like Ken Walker, 44% of snaps, and again, barring injury, barring needing to take a break, do you think it's like, well, of course he's not going to get going. Of course you're going to have to rely on some random explosive plays because you can't ever get in a rhythm when you aren't the primary ball carrier?
Well, this may surprise you, Stacey, but I've never run the ball in the NFL. But I can guess what it's like. And for me, I would, if I was going out there and I'm thinking there's another guy on the sideline, but I want to have 15 carries plus in this game. So that means I have to make every single carry count. And then I'm running up the middle and I don't see anything, then I'm hesitating. I'm thinking, right, I need to make, this needs to be a 7-8 yard gain. This can't be a 1 yard gain. I've got to make this happen because I want to have most of the snaps. I want to stay on the field. You may be just sort of mentally thinking, I've got to do a little bit more here. And then you do see a bit of hesitation sometimes of both of these running backs trying to make things happen. Whereas I do think if you had 20, 25 carries in a game, you can get into a rhythm where maybe you do have a 3 yard run, a 1 yard run, but then you've got a 10 yard run and you're not really sort of wondering, I've got to make things happen. I can take what's there. And sometimes there's not going to be anything there as a running back, but just live to play another down, go back out there and do it again. And maybe they are just sort of thinking, I have to do so much because I'm in a timeshare. I might only get 9-10 carries in a game. It's not really helping. I think they're both so talented. I think both in their own rights are lead running backs in the NFL. I'm just not sure that this split, which is perhaps inspired a little bit by we've invested in these players, we have to justify that now. I'm not sure it's really helping either of them or this running game.
Far be it from me to complain about anything after a win, especially when this team improves to 5-2 with stiff competition around them, the Rams and 49ers, now also 5-2. But 2 areas that I do want to ask you about. Just tell me your level of concern. They were 2 for 14 on third down. 14.3% is not great. Also, obviously, a lot of turnovers in this one that ended up making it much closer than it should have been. This should have been a Seahawks blowout. It felt like it for most of the game. Do either of those 2 things, a failure with third downs and struggles with turning the ball over, concern you following this one, or do you just look at it and go, good Texans defense?
It does concern me because I think it is part of the inability to finish, the inability to play clean football. This should have been exactly like that. The Rams played an AFC South opponent in London at the weekend, and basically they might as well have sent the Jacksonville Jaguars for a little tour of London, go and see Big Ben, go and see the Houses of Parliament, because they were that bad, and it was 35 points to 7. And then here, you're thinking, if Drake Thomas takes that ball like an extra inch forward over the line for a touchdown and it's 21-0, you're thinking this is going to be exactly the same. And it should have been a 35-7 type win for the Seahawks. And it is those turnovers. It is the play calling for me. It was unusual. I really hope that they've not been influenced by complaints. And I have absolutely no idea how much time they spend listening to quote unquote the noise that goes on. But there were some murmurs of the Seahawks are too conservative. In the fourth quarter, they try and run the ball too much. They need to put it in the arm of Sam Darnold. And when I was watching that game at the end, I'm sat there thinking, why are you throwing as much as this? Are you trying to be a bit more aggressive to try and finish it with Darnold? And it didn't really seem to fit for me. And then you've got the turnovers, you've got the mistakes. Maybe it is a bit old-fashioned. I'm happy if you have to run the ball, kill some clock, and punt the ball away, especially with the way that defense is playing. I think I would have happily done that. And it just felt unsatisfying at the end. Like it was such a comfortable win. Like the Texans never really got within striking range of the Seahawks at the end. But it still just felt a little bit like... at the end, like, could they not have just finished with a bit more style? And it's the one thing, like, everybody's talking about how good are the Rams? How are the Niners doing this with all of their injuries? And from the Seahawks perspective, I feel like we're missing out. People should be able to go, this is a great team. They're right in the mix in the NFC. They've got the joint best record in the NFC right now. But the way that they didn't finish that game is just holding people back from sort of thinking, yes, this is a legit contender at the moment. So let's hope that they change that over the bye.
Which is also a shame because they do not have the number of injuries that the 49ers are dealing with, and I will give Kyle Shanahan all the credit in the world for doing that. I still can't believe that. However, they were shorthanded in this one. No Devin Witherspoon, no Julian Love. Both of us probably holding out hope that at the very least Love could return with this one, or one or the other could come back. Instead, they were shorthanded again on defense with a really, really good defensive performance yet again. But you're right. It's stiff competition in a very, very tight NFC West race, and unfortunately surpassing our wildest expectations with the passing offense and continuing to be great defensively while being shorthanded in your secondary isn't quite enough. But let's take a few minutes to talk about the defense. Again, Houston's offense had not been great all year long. We already know this. Dropped 44 points on Baltimore, a really bad Baltimore Ravens, and a very banged up Baltimore Ravens defense. But this was still, to me, a very impressive performance considering you don't have defensive leaders out there. What did you see?
I thought it was fantastic. You know, I've not seen the number of pressures that the Seahawks created in this game, but it felt like it was like 100. Like constantly, CJ Stroud was under pressure. He will have gone to sleep at night having nightmares about players in navy blue chasing him in the pocket. Like it was constant, relentless. They were physical. You know, they hit with a punch as well. You know, I thought it was superb. And then Leonard Williams, to me, it was great. I'm pretty sure that Dan Orlovsky at one point in the broadcast last night was talking about Leonard Williams potentially being Defensive Player of the Year. And for me, I was like, yeah, because the problem you've got is we pay so much attention to these PFF grades. I mean, Leonard Williams could have a 6-sack game and probably still get a 60 grade from PFF. But he's, you know, when you actually look at the eye test, what is he showing on the field week after week after week? He's not just playing well, impacting games, creating situations where even if he's not the one getting the sack, he's the one that's creating the pressure, which enables somebody else to capitalize on that. He's a tone setter up front. He just looks fantastic. For me, he has to be in the running for that. He's one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL this year, perhaps the best defensive tackle. He and Jeffrey Simmons can have a little contest to see who deserves the crown for being the absolute best. But he was brilliant. Nickam looks, again, that's 3 games in a row now where you're thinking, this guy's got something about him. You know, this is why they traded up for him. He is an exciting player. Tyre Carter, I thought, had a good game. I thought the cornerbacks, you know, the much maligned cornerbacks had a good game. It's a shame that Josh Jobe dropped 2 potential interceptions late on. But apart from that, you know, he had a good game. Everybody played well in the secondary. So the Buccaneers game, thankfully, was a bit of a one-off. It was an anomaly. They have done a very good job shutting down the Jaguars and now the Texans in back-to-back games. So they can get Julian Love back. They get Devin Witherspoon back. Maybe if they get into the trade market over the next 2 weeks as well. The bye may well have been timed quite well for that as well. So they can spend a bit of time looking at what's available in the NFL. Then this defense can take them a long way. You
know what's interesting about the Tampa Bay game? You're right. I think it's an anomaly in terms of how the defense performed. And again, even backups were getting hurt in that game. You were down to like third string guys that had been called up from the practice squad, guys that were banged up but had to stay in the game. However, the Tampa Bay game, I think, changed in a more impactful way the perception about Sam Darnold in the offense. So even though Sam Darnold in the offense had been fine, and we'd been talking about them in the weeks leading up to that game, I do think in terms of a statement game, while it very unfortunately came in a loss, it was kind of that one when it comes to the offense. So let's talk about statements a little bit. You're right. people are looking at the Rams absolutely beating up on Jacksonville. Short Puka Nakua, which my fantasy team is upset about, going, oh, it doesn't matter. Devontae Adams hat trick. Totally fine. No problem. Matthew Stafford, 5 touchdowns. Absolutely okay. Oh, 49ers, injured players, not a problem. They're still going to beat everyone up anyways. What kind of statement can Seattle make? Where are the opportunities? What are you waiting to see? What would make a statement for you?
I think really it is just sort of playing a 60-minute game. It's going in there and so the Steelers game is a good example of this. They dominate the Steelers on the road. That's not easy to do. The Steelers have got a decent record, and that was a heck of a game on Thursday night against Cincinnati. And you go in there and make them look bang average, but you're trailing 14 points to 7 at halftime. Like Arizona, you absolutely wiped the floor of the Cardinals, who nearly beat the Packers without Kyler Murray this weekend and probably should have won that game. You made them look terrible, but you need a last gasp field goal and a big play from Jackson Smith-Njigba to get into Ray, and also the kick situation, the mistake from the kicker to even be in position to try and get the field goal to make sure you don't throw that game away. You look at Jacksonville, and again, that felt like a game that could have got out of hand pretty quickly in that second half. And at the end, it was a one-score game. And then this game here as well, can they just find a way to finish? And I think this bye is coming at a good time. I think Mike McDonald needs to, first of all, I think the Jalen Milroe package has got to go in the cupboard, and so does the Cooper Cup throw in the football package has to go in the cupboard. I think we just need to, let's just not have any of that stuff for a while. So go and have a word with Clint Kubiak about that. And then I think he needs to sort of sit down and think, okay, how do we manage these situations better in the fourth quarter when we're ahead? How do we make sure that we finish? Devin McCourty was talking about this, like at the Patriots at their best. It's like they said that there'd be a point in the game where we knew we could finish this opponent, we could take their soul away, and that's it, the game's over. The Seahawks have got to those points in several games this year, and they haven't done it. They've let the other team survive, stick around, have an opportunity to come back. So I think if they can fix that, especially with some of the tough games they've got coming up over the next few weeks, they're going to be in the mix. It's a fun NFL season. It's so wide open, and they have an opportunity to be really good and have a bit of a run at this. And they're just going to play cleaner football for me.
Rob Staten of Seahawks Draft Blog, kind enough to join us. Rob will talk to you next week. Thanks so much.
See you next week.
Bye.